Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Joe McManus, president of Centinel Consulting and shareholder with Carlton law firm. Centinel is presenting this month's podcast on healthcare construction. The economic conditions across construction sectors have been in a state of volatility since COVID pandemic arrived. It's no surprise that many businesses and organizations adopted a wait-and-see approach before investing significant capital into the construction of modernized or new facilities. Notwithstanding, one of the outliers to this period of uncertainty is the healthcare construction sector. According to industry forecasts, healthcare construction spending is projected to further increase by 3% in 2021 to $28 billion. And COVID has actually spurred a number of advancements in healthcare facility development and delivery. Chief among them is modular delivery. Given this growth, Centinel Consulting is pleased to have today the nation's top healthcare construction contractor, Turner Construction Company, and by the way, the top contractor in the nation according to the latest ENR study of the top 400 contractors. And also we have healthcare developer MDN Development LLC, the leader in modular design and delivery. With me today are Kim Neuscheler. She's a vice president and business manager and is in charge of the Tampa, Florida office. Her focus has been through the years, healthcare laboratory research projects, and a number of other hospital clients. Larry Blackburn is also here. He's a vice president with Turner, and he is a director, and he's in charge of the Florida region. Finally, from MDN, we have Dann Finn, co-founder and COO. They're going to provide to you today their boots on the ground perspectives, and we'll discuss key healthcare construction market trends and projections, as well as benefits of certain delivery methods as clients look for speed to market. We thought we'd start today with Kim and clients and what you see as clients need in the area of the healthcare construction delivery.
Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate that introduction. You're right. In today's uncertain market, meeting the client's needs is of utmost importance. And two of the biggest things that we're seeing as challenges are speed to market and controlling cost escalation in the uncertain market that we have today based on the pandemic and other shortages, natural disasters that have affected manufacturing plants and things like that. So with the future of healthcare properties requiring that they maximize their existing facilities, both on and off campus, and how do we bring the services to them as quickly as they need them, especially now with us seeing a significant rise in COVID cases again, having to be able to help the healthcare facilities maximize their existing spaces is key, because there isn't sufficient time to build a new facility to help them treat the patients that are currently needing it. For example, in New York, Turner and other general contractors were hired by the government to build temporary COVID facilities and hospitals during the initial pandemic surge. And the issue back then is we had access to a lot more supplies and materials than we do now after a full year of COVID and labor shortages and things like that. And so with another surge upon us, it's going to be interesting to see if those types of facilities are required again. How do we meet the needs of the hospitals in our communities? Larry, are you seeing the same thing or hearing certain concerns from our healthcare partners? I know Lakeland and a few others here in Florida are seeing more surges, and we're hearing of more hospitals maybe doing some more of these temporary facilities. Oh, can you share with us what you're seeing as well?
Very much so, Kim. In fact, we just got a call last week from a health system down in South Florida needing additional beds due to the current surge in COVID that we're starting to face around the country. Florida obviously is, well, unfortunately leading the pack with this surge, but the need for temporary beds is starting to pop back up again. But current challenges in the market, the two main resources for any construction project are labor and material. We all know that. And obviously that's where we're struggling with shortages, mainly due to the impact of COVID, but like you mentioned, Kim, some of the other natural disasters going on. So current challenges with supply chain, longer lead times for really common materials. Another example, we have a client that we're working with that wants, they're building several orthopedic surgery centers around the country, and they had a project in Phoenix, and they couldn't get the insulated roofing material, tapered insulation roofing material, ISO board. The material, it was like gold all of a sudden. It was a lead time of almost 5 months, which was creating a serious setback on meeting their schedule. So some of the mitigation strategies we help our clients with, we talk to them about making timely decisions, consider early release, and buy the material early where you can and store it if it's possible off-site. Consider buying commodity and other type products early and storing them in warehouses possibly. Look to buy raw materials early to lock in the pricing, because that's the other issue we're dealing with, is cost escalation with the material shortages. Even when you're working with the engineering team, avoid, revise, and resubmit on the product approval process in favor of, make corrections noted to keep your place in line with the manufacturing systems is another strategy to mitigate the shortage that we're dealing with. And always be open to considering alternative products, other options for your materials. That's something we looked at the facility in Phoenix I mentioned before. Instead of ISO board, go to a different type of insulation material that might have been more readily available. And more importantly, include some extended lead times in your project schedule to account for this. So, Turner, with our clients, we have very strong purchase power in the supply chain. We're very proactive in facing these supply chain problems and able to mitigate some of these delays that we've been experiencing. And then on the labor shortage side, workers left the construction industry during the pandemic. There was quite a bit of delays or postponements in some projects, particularly in the healthcare market. Hospital systems cancel elective surgeries because they needed to maintain the beds. They just put a focus on that, and that's where they generate the most revenue, the elective surgery. So they had to put the stop on some of their projects. So when we lost the labor, it's become very difficult to get that back now that we were starting to come out of the pandemic here early in 2021. Some of the things that we're doing to mitigate that, we're looking to prefabricate or modularize some of the building components. That's something Dan's going to chat on in a minute here. And, we do a thorough review of our subcontractors before we pre-qualify them for our projects, make sure they, what does their workload, their backlog look like? Do they have the manpower needed to meet our schedule? So we vet that out in great detail to make sure that when we bring them on board, we can mitigate that labor shortage as much as possible.
For example, with the supply chain, for example, with all of my clients in all the various industries, it affects everybody,
Very much.
Everybody. And the same true is with the labor, and I think that Turner with their economic power, I see that you got the ability to mitigate those where, a smaller contractor's has a tough time. It's sort of get in line is what I've seen, from a legal perspective. And I was intrigued too about your comment about the labor, and training. I know, Kim, you're huge in training. As looking at your bio and your work in New York, that's one of your focuses, I do believe.
That's right, Joe. I think, one of the key things that we face is labor shortages, as Larry mentioned. And with that comes problems with delivering on schedule. And as we know, speed to market is key. So you have to start looking at other avenues to create workforce and get them back into the market, whether it's a workforce development program, switching, as Larry mentioned, to prefabricated components, going to offsite construction, where you can do more work in a conditioned environment and have less labor force. You're doing single point connections on site and things like that. So you have to be a lot more creative if you're going to handle what our clients need now, which is speed to market. And then also controlling the costs at the same time, by taking some of the labor off site and doing it in a more controlled environment. You're in a safer environment. You've got better quality control. You're also have more economical labor rates in the factory than you do on the job site. And so you start to look at, okay, well, how can I be creative in establishing, one, how do we get more qualified labor so that we have more consistency on our projects, and make sure that we can deliver quality products to our clients. And then also, not only how do we increase the amount of qualified labor, but how do we be cognizant of reducing costs as well? Because, with all of the labor shortages and material shortages, prices are going up. We're paying ridiculous prices for equipment, for materials, et cetera. And that's when you start to talk about what MDN has discovered is volumetric modular and other prefabricated components. And so it's a combination. We constantly have to be reinventing ourselves to be able to meet the needs of the current environment, because it's forever changing, and we never know which challenge we're going to face next. And
and both Kim, both you and Larry mentioned this offsite construction, and that's a nice segue into Dan and his business there. It's because it's not just it's just not a one-off thing. There's been ASHE, the Healthcare Executives Group, with part of AHA, expressed that modular is here to stay, and it really has exploded during the pandemic. And then there was a survey of property owners for Construction Users Roundtable and CII, Construction Industry Institute. They stated that the shortage of skilled labor available for on-site work and increased pressure on project costs are the primary reasons for the popularity of off-site constructions. And additionally, the technology allowing for greater applicability and customization, heightened concerns regarding safety and risk, and an increasing demand for higher quality are also driving this modular revolution. So Dan, maybe you can give us your perspective. Tell us about your company, and if you can, about how did the modular construction evolve in the healthcare delivery system?
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, MDN development, and what we're really finding today is we're acting more as a modular consultant than actually developer. And I think the modular is accelerating. And I think for all the reasons that's just been talked about by both Kim and Larry, we solve some of the problems. Modular are offsite construction, also a volumetric modular. Such as those labor shortages. These laborers work in a factory in a controlled environment where, of course, the modules are built every day. And when one project is over, the next one comes along. They're continuing. It's not from site to site to site. So this offsite construction has really taken hold. I think part of it, as we mentioned, because of the pandemic necessity to get things done quicker, and modular brings a project to the market. It's speed to market. And of course, that's big dollars for an owner. And then we can talk about other things too. The reliable labor, so we can control labor costs. It's more efficient use of skilled labor, and in a safer environment, very, very important. The workers work in less tight quarters. We can control. We've talked about the pandemic and COVID. Excessive heat, all that is more controlled. And so we also have better quality control, not just for that, but in the actual work. The product you get is going to be much higher quality. Modular construction it's been around for a while, but it's really coming to the fore now. And I think what we're seeing too is a matter of education. Like I said, we're becoming more consultants than anything, and it's an education of these benefits, because it can be a less costly too, not only in labor costs, but we're using the same materials, but there's less site costs, simply because if it comes to market sooner, you have less general condition costs, those kind of things. So it's just a more efficient process. And I think modular is coming in some cases, and Kim and Larry and I've talked about this in projects where it's a combination of site built and modular. So it's just a good marriage, if you will, of the two techniques, and really, really coming forward.
And the benefit, yeah, Joe, and Dan, the benefit of that is while you're offsite building a lot of the components of the building, not only, and we're not just talking about prefabrication of head walls or prefabrication of exam rooms and bathrooms. We're talking about volumetric modular, where you're building entire rooms and stacking them on each other. They're structural components. And as Dan mentioned, there's an education that's needed with that, because our clients are getting more and more interested in it, but it hasn't been done everywhere. And there are concerns about, the unknown with that. But at the same time that we're exploring that, and we're building in offsite facilities, we can simultaneously be building the site components on site. And so like you reduce your schedule. As Dan mentioned, there's so many added benefits of offsite construction, whether it's components of the building or whether it's full volumetric modular. And so as we educate our clients about the benefits, whether it's cost, whether it's schedule, quality, safety, you name it, they're becoming more and more interested and more willing to, step out of the standard site build construction delivery method and look at these other options, which it's been exciting. And, we definitely see it as part of the future, especially in light of the supply issues we're having with labor shortages and things like that. If we can make decisions early, that's one of the things that with modular and volumetric modular, that's a huge component, is we have to be willing to make decisions sooner. And so clients will have to, standardize their products maybe, and standardize, the way their facilities look, which is a great, thing when you think about it for branding. If someone sees a facility, oh, that's this particular healthcare facility's building type, and that's just easily recognizable that's where they want to go. And so there are certain factors that, are benefited by going and switching to modular that maybe not everyone thought about before.
Yeah, and I think, Kim, too, that what you were talking about there, what we're seeing, of course, and you're aware of this, is a change in the healthcare industry and the delivery models, and a lot of inpatient now going to outpatient, which is driving a lot of ASC construction. And we actually have a prototype ASC from a 2 OR. We can make a 3 OR, 4 or 5, whatever is needed. Same thing with freestanding EDs. And they're not just one-offs. So again, these can be built in the factory. And talking about materials are so hard to come by. So there's a more efficient use because those materials can be stored in this offsite setting and reused. There's less waste. That makes it easier. And so then we can bring these things to market much quicker, even than just a one-off. So the multiples are great, but we're seeing a lot of that.
But it's truly the future of construction. I've been with Turner over 40 years, so I've seen quite a bit of change. And a couple of the things, you hit a lot of the benefits, but the competition is also growing. More and more of these modular companies are popping up around the country now. So that's going to drive competition, which will also drive costs down for our clients. And it was interesting, another example on the labor side, I was talking to one of the modular companies, and they have no problem getting labor. And one of their carpenters said, he would take $1 or $2 an hour cut to go work in a temperature controlled warehouse because he would get guaranteed 40 hours. He wouldn't lose a day due to weather. He would actually get even more overtime because they're starting to get busier. So you start to see that shift of labor And we target 30 to 40% or more of our projects now to be either prefabricated or modularized. That will help alleviate that labor shortage that we're facing on our job sites.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm a small contractor, all right, and I'm facing labor shortages to start off with, all right, and now I'm facing OSHA pressure because of my distancing requirements and the heat problems that we got, for example, out west. Why wouldn't I be pushing for more modular construction? I went to an annual meeting of the American College of Construction Lawyers this last year, and we had the head of the Modular Institute. And it was staggering the amount of what they could deliver. I mean, power plants construction, just segments of power plants, and the ability to be able to deliver the same product over and over and over with that kind of consistent quality has got to be a great push. But and I think, Kim, you brought this up, is that we're also getting pulled by the healthcare industry, right? Because they're changing their types of structures that they want. Can you give us some insight into that?
Sure. Predominantly, they're looking for flexibility, regardless of the building type. But Dan mentioned it too. They're going for, a lot more towards outpatient care facilities than inpatient, and so you have more ambulatory surgical centers. You have more freestanding emergency departments and micro hospitals and things like that are put out into the communities and the neighborhoods closer to the people that are going to need those services. So you make it more convenient. And regardless of the building type, whether it's modular construction or if it's normal site build construction, the most important thing that we're seeing with our clients is design flexibility, to be able to use those spaces for a variety of different uses, whether it's a medical or surgical patient room, being able to switch that immediately to an ICU patient room, when we're considering the possible pandemic surge. So the issue becomes is how do you design the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems to be able to accommodate whichever type you need to go to. Each facility and each type of surgical center or whatever will have their own requirements for air changes per hour and negative pressure versus positive pressure rooms when you're talking about critical care patients. And so understanding, the needs of the clients and how many different ways they may need to configure a room. And maybe you have some redundancies built in so that if you're in one stage of a project or a process, you can use the room for this type of facility, but then in the event you have a pandemic, you can look at, implement additional measures where you can have negative pressure rooms and get better air circulation and oxygen to, the rooms that need it, and other services like that. So I think the criticality is flexibility in being able to, whether it's convert existing to have more flexibility or whether it's new. Owners want to know that they can use their facilities for a variety of different services.
To give you an example, we touched on speed to market. So we were working with a client in Central Florida that was going to build a 3-story, 82,000 square foot medical office building with urgent care, physician offices, exam rooms. So we partnered with Dan and his modular partners to build the 56 exam rooms, the 4 procedure rooms. So while we're developing the site, bringing the structure up, Dan and his team are building these rooms in a environmental control warehouse and then delivering just in time the project. We're going to bring them in and set them in place. And what was a 13-month schedule, we could deliver that facility in 11 months now. We say we would shave 2 months, like 15% roughly off of the schedule. So that's the speed to market our clients are looking for us to deliver on.
Absolutely, Larry. And of course, I can't agree more. Of what I call the 5 benefits to modular construction. Number 1 is speed to market. So early delivery, and that's done through more simultaneous construction opportunities, a streamlined construction process. So it's a little bit faster. And of course, we've talked about this, the reliable and efficient labor and labor costs. So it's a more efficient use of the skilled labor. We talked about how hard it is to find. So use that as efficiently as possible. Better safety. And Joe was mentioning the excessive heat, being able to control the whole COVID protocols, those kind of things. Better quality control in the controlled factory work environment. And of course, minimum site impact. So yeah, I think it's a great partnership, and modular is going to excel at that and keep coming and be a great partner to site build. So offsite and site build, I see going hand in hand to take us into the future.
And you say partnership, you're talking about the entire subcontract community and the architect, for example, getting together with the modular manufacturer. How do you see the cooperation going? And what do you see? Is it going to be as collaborative as it sounds?
Yeah, I think that's been our experience, Joe. And I think Kim and Larry are a good example of that, working with a site-built contractor. And they have accepted this. And it's been a matter of when we first got together and talking to Kim and Larry about all the benefits we're talking about right now. But I do see it going hand in hand into the future. I think it's going to be accepted well for all the reasons. So I think it's very positive. I'm very excited about it. And MDN can hardly wait to take the next project with Turner.
And Joe, just to add on that, one of the key things with modular and the advancement of it in the spirit of collaboration, it's required, it's necessary, because you have to start early on and in coordination and having the design team, side by side with the fabricator and the contractor to make sure that everything is coordinated in advance. Because like I mentioned earlier in our segment, we have to know where all those services go, where all the pipes are laid out, where the duct is laid out. Normally we would do it on site, and you would do coordination, whether you use and all of the technologies that we have now. So whether it's volumetric modular or partial modular and prefabrication or site build, coordination is so important, and you need to work together in order to set the locations for all of your services and make sure you have enough room for above the ceiling and in the walls for everything that's required in a healthcare facility or any other facility for that matter. So the more that we can work together up front, the more seamless it'll be. And especially when you get into volumetric modular, where you're stacking units on top of each other, you're guaranteed the same point of one unit. Your MEPs are going to be in the same location in the unit below, and you're just stacking one on top of the other, and even side by side. So as you're fabricating in a more controlled environment, you can guarantee a little bit better where all of your services are going to be, because the workers are working, more at grade than up in the air at elevated work levels. And it's just a little bit easier to coordinate and to actually construct. So the collaboration has to start from the beginning, or you won't be able to make the decision soon enough to make volumetric modular or just modular in general, worthwhile. You won't gain the benefit. And if you're not collaborating, you just lose all of that. But the thing that we talk about and we try to foster on all of our projects is the right environment, which has all of this collaboration involved in it, right? I mean, we want to make sure that every team member is marching to the same goal, making sure that we give the client a quality product. And in order to be able to do that, we need to be able to talk to each other and talk the same language.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, Kim. And you mentioned stacking. And for our audience, I just wanted to mention to give a better mind picture, if you will, of modular construction. Think of Legos, and these Legos are built in the factory, taken to the site, and then stacked and put together. And as you said, everything meets, all the mechanical, the electrical, plumbing, they're finished in the factory, 80 to 85% complete, and then put together and stacked, if you will, very efficiently. And then the final finishing is done. And that's part of where the partnership, if you will, with a general contractor like Turner too comes in play. And a good partnership, but that collaboration and design up front is key and critical. And that makes everything else work.
Yeah, two of my largest healthcare fights had to do with clearances, all right, laying out All right, and not having enough space, okay, between the end of the bed and the nurses, and the other areas. And what happens is you seem to eliminate that, or certainly mitigate that, with the consistency of modular construction. I think it's from my own liability point of view, that was certainly, if I find modular refreshing on that lines. Well,
Sure.
Kim, maybe we can, and for all of you, for those healthcare executives who are going to be listening to this podcast and those directors of facilities, do you have any final takeaways that you want to provide to us? Because this has been very illuminating.
Well, I think, just aside from, the different building types that we're seeing more and more in the industry with the ASCs and the FSEDs and the urgent care centers, whatever, and bringing the services to the community, which I know the community support is some of the organizations that I work for in New York, they were doing that also. And, instead of having to go all the way into the city to receive services, they can, drive a couple of miles down the road and receive the services. Another thing that is really informing the offices of the future and the healthcare facilities of the future is the rise in telemedicine with the pandemic. So everyone is still considering what their office and or healthcare space needs are, because certain things can be addressed through telemedicine now. And so I think that the more we're open to being flexible in our thought process, whether it's how we use spaces and whether we do modular construction or site build construction, the more we're flexible and collaborate along the way to figure out the best solution. Sometimes it's a hybrid. Dan mentioned it earlier. Sometimes we have a hybrid where certain components of a job are site built, and then certain components are modular or prefabricated offsite construction. And the more we can work together to figure out a solution that's best for that particular project, the more we'll come to provide a better quality product and figure out how to get it speed to market as quickly as possible. And it just comes down to partnership on all sides.
Dan, Larry, any further thoughts for those heads of facilities and executives? You can.
Sure, Joe, because there may be some of our listeners wanting to raise their hand and ask a question about testing and certification. We haven't touched on that yet, but that's something we figured out as well. Typically, it involves a third-party testing agency that is brought into the factory or the warehouse where the modular units are being built, and those inspections and certifications are done and are in hand when that finished product is delivered to the job site. I want to make sure we touched on that.
Yeah, good point, Larry. Thank you. Yeah, and I think that third-party inspection process is now accepted. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Is it 32 or 38 states that it's accepted and used?
I believe it's even more than that, Dan. I think it's in the 40s.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's increasing every day as we talk about, because modular is being accepted more and more. And as you would say, Joe, for those, the directors of facilities, the vice president of construction, whoever, I would say, ask questions, and you can contact, again, MDN Development, Turner. We are partners. And as we said, we're going to be partners in the future. But go ahead, ask us the questions. We're here to educate. This will be something that will benefit all of us. And so when I say partners, it's not just about developers and general contractors, but it is owners. This is a great partnership that is coming forward.
I think one final thing that I would offer, in addition to what Larry said for facilities and filing, the other benefit of what we can do now with all the technological advancements that there are with volumetric modular site build construction, it's the handover, the turnover package at the end for servicing the buildings in the future. So facilities and operations groups want to know that they're going to get an easy to maintain facility, and the more you go with the volumetric modular, you can be assured that each damper is in the same spot, in the same, for the same room, or, in the corridor, however it might be, wherever this device or any other device is located, knowing that, that deliverable that you get at the end, and the certainty that you get with the quality control of a volumetric product that's a huge benefit to the owner. They don't have to guess. It's the same place every time. And then that turnover package at the end of the day has all the information, whether it's your O&M manuals and your coordinated drawings, your product data, your warranty information. And that's a benefit that, with the building information modeling that we do nowadays and all the coordination techniques, volumetric modular is just another way to give an added layer of certainty to being able to easily maintain your building in the future. So I would just say, don't rule it out. It's definitely a viable option, and we're seeing more and more people interested in this delivery approach.
Well, I wanted to follow up on Dan's offer that listeners who are interested and have those questions, all right, can reach out to Dan at MDN or Larry or Kim at Turner, or of course me at Centinel Consulting. We've reached the end of our day, but I want to thank Kim and Dan and Larry so much for participating here, and what I think has been a very exciting development in the healthcare construction delivery.
Thanks, Joe. It's been our pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe, very much.
Bye-bye.
This podcast is intended for general information and educational purposes only and should not be relied on as if it were advice about a particular fact situation.